Assalamu alaikum. We have just launched our Fight with Light fundraising campaign for Seekers Hub Global, where our goal is to raise $60,000 in monthly donations by the end of the year, and all of this money will go towards fighting ignorance and fighting hatred and fighting extremism by spreading the light of knowledge and the light of guidance and the light of the way of our Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We hope that you'll join us in this fight, and you can do so by becoming a monthly donor at seekershub.org/donate.
Last question. Yeah. What's the ruling of eating food purchased on a credit card before the credit card is paid, but within the interest-free period?
Okay. Halal food remains halal. Right? So there's two things. One is halal food remains halal regardless of, other considerations. Right? That's one aspect. Now, if something was purchased directly with the haram, specifically, then you do not consume that, not because the food becomes haram, but because it was purchased from the haram directly. So, for example, you're walking down the street trying to mind your own business, right? So you're crossing the Islamic Dawah Center, and for some strange reason, this Muslim taxi driver, you see him punch someone in the face, grab their wallet, and then they went and bought a watermelon. And they go, Imam Ilyas, here's a watermelon for you. And they produced a suspicious-looking dagger, and they opened, they did the, I don't know if you know, expert watermelon cutter, they cut it on the spot, here you go. Is Imam Ilyas allowed to consume that from that watermelon? No, because the watermelon is halal, but it's directly from the haram. Right? It's directly from. So you'll not be allowed to partake in that. Right? You have to actually tell him, give back if you can, you command the good and forbid the wrong. Insofar as you don't fear harm, such as from that dangerous looking dagger. Right? But if something is related to what could be haram, the food doesn't become haram. Right? So in itself, for example, the use of a credit card is permissible, unless it results in the haram. Right? So someone purchased food using a credit card, the food doesn't become haram. Their act of falling into riba is the haram in the case. And one needs to be careful, because the permissibility of the use of a credit card is conditioned and predicated on being sure that you will be able to pay up in full before any interest accrues on your credit card. And you have to be very careful about that. Most Muslims who have credit cards are negligent in this matter. And that's sinful. It's a major sin. It is falling into riba. And there's stern warnings against that. There's nothing that is warned against more severely than, after disbelief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, than riba is. Because there's nothing that is materially more harmful to humanity than the institution of riba, than of interest. It is what leads to the economic enslavement of entire peoples and nations and continents. And that's why we have economic injustice. One of the foundations of economic injustice is riba and all that it results in. So we do not participate in it, and we have a principled, pragmatic, practical approach to that. So be very careful about the use of credit cards. If you're not able to use it, avoid it. If you can't use it without paying up in full before interest accrues, do not use it. Get rid of your credit. Pay up, clear your debt, don't use credit cards. In general, debt is a matter that a concerned believer avoids, in general. For many reasons, which we won't go into, but debt is discouraged in our deen. And it's a traditional value across societies. They used to say, a fate worse than debt. Right? A fate worse than debt. Those of you read, Margaret Atwood did a series of Massey lectures on debt in European thought and literature and the cultural narrative. It was just before the financial crisis. It's almost small p prophetic in that sense, right? Not capital P prophetic, small p. Like it's all like, and those are fascinating. I forget what they're called, but it's a important religious value to avoid debt unless clearly needed, to the extent of the need, without falling into riba. Sometimes there's a need. You're trying to start a business, you borrow some money, but you borrow to the extent of your need in a manner that's permissible, without riba, and you're sure that you'll be able to repay, etc., then that's fine. They say if you need to get married, there's an excellent opportunity. Uncle Jamil said, you have 10 days to propose to my daughter, Zubair. Zubair's like, I ain't got no money. And you know the condition. Uncle Jamil is like, in some cultures, they actually make their conditions known. Our daughter will not get married for less than 20,000 in mahar. Now Zubair is like a grad student, he's broke. So he goes to Imam Ilyas. He said, Imam Ilyas, how do I get $20,000? So, let's say the Islamic Dawah Center has the Muslim Marriage Fund. And it's worked really well. A wealthy Kuwaiti donor gave $500,000. So they'll lend out $20,000 mahar, payable in over 4 years. Is it okay for Zubair to borrow from the Muslim Marriage Fund, if sure that he can repay and it's done permissibly, no interest, etc.? It'd be allowed, right? But because there's a clear need, marriage is a need. But you want to throw a lavish wedding and you don't know if you'll be able to pay for it. Should you borrow for that? No, you shouldn't. Moderate your expenses.